When people picture Yoda on Dagobah, the image is always the same: a tiny hut in a swamp, an old Jedi eating simple food and waiting for Luke to arrive. But the real question is what happened in all the time before that, because Yoda doesn't just vanish for nearly 2 decades and do nothing. Right after the fall of the Jedi Order, Yoda is dealing with 2 problems at once. The first problem is survival in the galaxy. The Empire is hunting Jedi, the Sith are in control, and Yoda is one of the most recognizable Jedi alive. The second problem is deeper and harder. The entire Jedi system that Yoda helped lead has collapsed, and it didn't collapse randomly. It collapsed through mistakes, blind spots, and choices that Yoda was part of. So exile isn't just hiding. Exile becomes a chance to rebuild what the Jedi lost, at least inside one person, before the galaxy ever gets another chance. Dagobah was chosen by Yoda for a very important reason. But before we jump into what that is, if you've ever wanted a saber that actually feels like it came straight out of the movies, you need to check out Sabers Pro. Their hilts look like proper on-screen replicas, the blades are super bright, and built tough enough for real dueling. They also have specialty replicas, which is 1-to-1 to the extent they look like they were stolen from the movie sets. Check the link in the description and use the referral code Luke's Temple when you pick one up to support the channel. So, like I said, Dagobah was picked for a reason. It's remote, it's difficult to navigate, and it's soaked in strange life and wild energy. It's the kind of place most people avoid because it's not clean or calm or comfortable. But that chaos is useful. In many Star Wars stories, places strong in the Force can feel like noise to anyone trying to track a specific person. Dagobah is like that. It's a planet where life is everywhere, the swamp is thick, creatures are everywhere, and the Force doesn't feel neat. That makes it a good hiding place, not because it's empty, but because it's crowded in the one way that matters. It also has something else that matters a lot. There is a dark side presence on Dagobah, the cave that Luke later enters. Whether that darkness was always there or built up over time, the important part is what it does. Darkness can hide light. Once Yoda arrives, daily life probably gets a lot more practical than people expect. In the movies, the hut looks like a strange little home, and that's because it is one. Yoda needs bowls, containers, tools, and somewhere to sleep. He needs a way to store food. He needs to move around without getting sick, injured, or eaten. And even for someone strong in the Force, living in a swamp is work. Dagobah is not a quiet forest where someone can sit on a rock and meditate all day. It's wet, it's full of biting insects, it's full of predators, and it's the kind of environment where a small mistake can turn into a serious problem. So part of what Yoda does is basic survival. Finding edible plants, catching small creatures, collecting clean water, keeping a fire going when everything around you wants to put it out, keeping a shelter stable in a place that floods and shifts. This is not glamorous, but it fits Yoda in a way that people sometimes miss. The Jedi lifestyle was never supposed to be luxury. It was discipline, simplicity, and focus. In one canon short story, Yoda is described as having more than one shelter and moving between areas based on seasons, heat, and flooding. The story also describes him planting seeds as he travels, so that food grows along his route. That detail matters because it makes his exile feel less like sit and wait and more like build a routine. It's not a vacation and it's not punishment. It's a structured life designed to keep him alive and keep him sharp. He is old, but he is not careless. But survival is only the outer layer. The core of Yoda's exile is what happens inside his head and inside his connection to the Force. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda tells Obi-Wan that Qui-Gon Jinn has found a way to return and that training is going to happen. That line is easy to treat as a simple setup for Force ghosts, but for Yoda, it's a major shift. It means the Jedi are not completely cut off. It means there is still knowledge out there that the old Jedi Order didn't fully have. So one of the most important things Yoda does on Dagobah is train, not with a lightsaber and not with younglings in a temple, but in a quieter and stranger way. It's the kind of learning that takes time, discipline, and a deep reset of how a Jedi understands life and the Force. That also connects to something bigger. During the Clone Wars era, the Jedi are constantly pulled into politics and war. The Order becomes a military leadership structure, even when it doesn't want to admit it. Yoda is a central piece of that machine. On Dagobah, that machine is gone. So, exile becomes the first long stretch of time in decades where Yoda can return to the thing the Jedi claim to be about, which is listening to the Force without an agenda. And that matters because Yoda is not just reflecting, he is correcting. He is thinking about how the Jedi got trapped, how the Sith hid in plain sight, how the Order became rigid, how fear of loss, fear of attachment, and fear of change shaped decisions that pushed Anakin in the wrong direction. Yoda can't rewrite history, but he can re-examine what the Jedi believed and what those beliefs produced in the real world. A lot of fans read Yoda's personality in the original trilogy and assume he went weird because he was alone too long, but it makes more sense to think of it as strategy mixed with age. When Luke arrives, Yoda acts foolish at first, annoying, messy, unpredictable. That behavior works like a filter. Luke is impatient, frustrated, and focused on getting what he wants. If Luke can't handle confusion, he can't handle the Force. So part of Yoda's swamp goblin behavior is probably a test, not a breakdown. That doesn't mean exile is easy, though. Yoda has guilt, and unlike Obi-Wan, who has a clear mission to watch over Luke from a distance, Yoda's mission is less visible. Yoda is waiting for a future that might never come. The Empire could win forever. Vader could stay alive forever. The twins could die. The rebellion could be crushed. So Yoda is living with uncertainty as a daily companion, and for someone who spent centuries inside an institution, that kind of open-ended waiting can be brutal. That's why the Force training matters again. The training isn't just about learning how to become a spirit later. It's also about learning how to exist in a galaxy that feels like it has fallen into darkness. In fan language, it's about reconnecting. But in practical terms, it's about keeping hope alive without lying to yourself. It's about seeing clearly when everything looks hopeless. People also wonder if Yoda had contact with the rebellion. In most canon material, the answer is that he stayed hidden and he stayed cautious. Dagobah was chosen to avoid attention, and actively joining the rebellion would bring attention. But staying hidden does not mean completely disconnected. In Star Wars Rebels, Yoda is able to communicate through the Force. It's not framed like casual chatting every week. It feels more like rare, intentional contact, usually when there is a strong reason and a strong connection. That kind of contact fits the logic of exile. Yoda can reach out when the Force pushes him to, but he cannot become a public leader again. He can guide without exposing himself, and he can focus on the one long-term plan that matters, which is the survival of the Skywalker twins and the possibility of a new Jedi path. Obi-Wan is part of that picture too. For a long time, Obi-Wan is alive, also in hiding. There is no clear on-screen moment where Yoda and Obi-Wan sit and talk during those years, but their connection doesn't need a holocall to exist. Jedi relationships are built on the Force, and it's reasonable to think they stayed aware of each other in small ways, careful ways. Not dramatic conversations, but check-ins through presence, through meditation, through quiet certainty that the other one is still alive. After Obi-Wan dies on the Death Star, his relationship with Yoda can change again. At that point, Obi-Wan is no longer a man hiding in the desert. He is a spirit that can appear, guide, and discuss what comes next. Some stories and fan discussions imagine actual debates between them, especially about whether Luke or Leia should be trained first. Whether that exact argument happened or not, the idea behind it makes sense. Luke is impulsive. Luke is emotional. Luke is reckless. And Luke carries the same danger Anakin carried, the danger of becoming powerful before becoming stable. That leads into a key idea that explains a lot of Yoda's Dagobah years. Yoda is planning, but not like a general. He is planning like a teacher who knows he might get one chance to teach one student. If the Jedi return at all, it might be through one person. That means the training can't be casual. It has to be efficient, and it has to focus on the correct problems. So Yoda spends years thinking about what the Jedi missed. The old Jedi system produces powerful Jedi, but it also produces blind spots. It produces pride without realizing it. It produces rules that become walls. It produces a fear of emotion that can turn emotion into something dangerous because it never gets processed in a healthy way. That's why Luke's training on Dagobah is less about fancy Force tricks and more about discipline. Patience. Listening. Facing fear. Facing anger. Facing the temptation to rush into a fight. Yoda does teach physical skills, but the real target is Luke's mind, because if Luke's mind collapses, the lightsaber is meaningless. This also helps answer the question of whether Yoda became a normal person. In one sense, yes. On Dagobah, Yoda lives like a person, not like a public figure. No council meetings, no war briefings, no temple routines, no speeches, just life. But Yoda is not trying to stop being Yoda. He is stripping away everything that distracted him from being a Jedi in the purest sense. A Jedi is supposed to serve life and the Force, not institutions and politics. Dagobah is where Yoda tries to return to that. When Luke finally shows up, Yoda doesn't act like someone who is surprised and unprepared. He acts like someone who has been waiting for this exact problem. He sees Luke's flaws immediately because he has spent years thinking about the same flaws in Anakin. He sees the danger because he has lived with the consequences, and he sees the possibility because even after all that darkness, Yoda still believes one person can change the course of the galaxy. He lived simply because simplicity keeps him alive and keeps him grounded. He trained because the old Jedi knowledge was not enough and the future needed something deeper. He reflected because the Jedi failed for reasons that had to be understood, not ignored. He stayed hidden because the hope of the twins mattered more than any heroic last stand. And when the moment finally came, he was ready to do the one thing that still mattered most. If you enjoyed this video, drop it a like and subscribe for more awesome Star Wars content. Don't forget to get yourself a professional replica lightsaber from Sabers Pro. Use the link in the description or code Luke's Temple at checkout to save yourself some money and support the channel. Until next time, may the Force be with you.